from garden to tower. In the very first pages of the Bible, before there are kings, laws, or famous heroes, there is a story about our world. It begins with beauty and blessing and slowly cracks under human pride and selfishness. Genesis chapters 1 to 11 are like the opening of a movie. They explain why the world is both wonderful and painful, why humans can be kind and cruel, and why even after so much failure, God still has not given up. In this episode, we will travel from a garden called Eden to a tower called Babel. We will walk through a good creation, a dangerous choice, a broken family, a violent world, and a proud city, and along the way we will look for the quiet thread of hope that runs through the whole story. Part 1. A good world and a great calling, Genesis 1 to 2. Before anything we know existed, there was darkness, deep waters, and silence. Then God speaks. Light appears and cuts through the darkness. Day and night begin. God speaks again. The sky forms above, the sea gathers below. He speaks again. Dry land appears, plants and trees grow, fruit and seeds of every kind. He speaks again. The sun, moon, and stars take their places to mark times and seasons. He speaks again. Birds fly in the sky, fish swim in the sea, animals walk on the land. Again and again, God looks at what He has made and calls it good. Then the story slows down. God forms a human from the dust of the ground and breathes His own breath into him. The man becomes a living soul. Later, God makes a partner for him from his side, close to his heart. The man is called Adam, meaning humanity. The woman is called Eve, meaning life. God blesses them and gives them a calling. Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth. Rule over the creatures. Care for this world as my image bearers. To be made in God's image means they are meant to represent His character, His wisdom, goodness, and care into the world. God places them in a garden called Eden, full of trees, rivers, and fruit. In the middle are two special trees, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Adam and Eve have everything they need. They live in God's presence. They are naked and unashamed. This is how it looks when humans live in harmony with their Creator. But in the middle of all this goodness stands a single boundary, a single command, and the story is about to turn on how humans respond to that boundary. Part 2, The Dangerous Choice, Genesis 3. Into this peaceful garden comes a serpent clever and deceptive. He asks Eve, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Eve answers that God only forbade one tree, the tree in the middle of the garden, warning that if they eat from it, they will die. The serpent replies, "You will not surely die. God knows that when you eat it your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." This tree represents a deep choice. Will humans trust God as wisdom about what is good and what is evil, or will they grab that power and define good and evil for themselves? Eve looks at the fruit. It looks good for food, beautiful to the eye, and desirable to make one wise. She takes it and eats, then gives some to Adam, who is with her, and he eats too. Suddenly their eyes are opened, but not in the way they hoped. They realize they are naked. Shame rushes in. They sew leaves together and try to cover themselves. They hear God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Instead of running to Him, they hide among the trees. God calls, "Where are you?" Adam answers, "I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." Fear replaces trust. Blame replaces honesty. Adam blames Eve. Eve blames the serpent. God announces consequences. The serpent will be brought low. Life will now include pain and struggle. The ground will resist human work. Relationships will be marked by tension. But God also plants a seed of hope. One day, a descendant of the woman will crush the serpent's head, though he himself will be wounded. Adam and Eve are sent out of the garden. The way to the tree of life is guarded. The world is still there, but the closeness with God is broken. Sin has entered the story and nothing will be quite the same. And the choice they made in the garden doesn't stay in the garden. It will move into their children, their grandchildren, and the whole human family. Part 3. Sin moves into the family. Genesis 4. In the previous part, we watched a dangerous choice in the garden as humans tried to define good and evil for themselves. Now we step outside the garden and into their home, where we'll see what happens when that same attitude moves into a family. Outside the garden, Adam and Eve begin their family. They have 2 sons, Cain, who works the soil, and Abel, who tends sheep. Both bring offerings to God. Abel's offering is accepted, Cain's is not. We are not told all the reasons, but we see Cain's reaction. He becomes very angry, his face falls. God warns him, "Why are you angry? If you do what is right, you will be accepted. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Sin is pictured like a wild animal at the door of Cain's heart. Cain ignores the warning. He invites Abel out into the field, and there he kills his brother. The distrust that began between humans and God has now become violence between brother and brother. God asks, "Where's Abel your brother?" Cain replies, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But Abel's blood cries out from the ground. God judges Cain. He will be a restless wanderer, and the land will resist his work. Cain fears revenge, but God marks him for protection, mixing justice with mercy. As generations pass, the story shows sin going deeper. Cain's descendants build cities, make music, fashion tools. Culture grows, but so does arrogance. We meet Lamech, a descendant of Cain, who takes multiple wives and boasts in a song about killing a man for wounding him. What began as one act in a garden has become jealousy, murder, and proud violence in families and cities. And if this is what one family line looks like over a few generations, the question grows, what happens when this pattern spreads across the whole earth? Part 4. A world full of violence. Genesis 6-9. In the last part, we saw sin move from a single choice to a family pattern of jealousy and revenge. Now Genesis zooms out even further and shows us what happens when that pattern fills the whole world. Time passes. New generations are born. Humanity spreads over the earth, and so does corruption. Genesis describes a world where people's thoughts are twisted and the earth is filled with violence. What began as individual choices has become a way of life, embedded in cultures, clans, and kingdoms. God sees this, and his heart is grieved. The Bible does not show a cold, distant God. It shows a God who feels sorrow over what his good world has become. Because he is just, he cannot ignore evil forever. Because he is loving, he will not let violence go unchecked. God decides to send a great flood to cleanse the earth, but he also chooses to preserve a future. He calls one man Noah, described as righteous in his generation. God tells Noah to build an ark, a large boat, and to bring his family and pairs of animals into it. Noah obeys, even though the command must have seemed strange and costly. The rain falls, waters rise, the deep bursts open. The world is covered in water, almost like returning to the chaos at the beginning. Every high mountain is hidden. But God remembers Noah. The waters slowly go down. The ark comes to rest on the mountains. Noah sends out birds until he knows the land is dry. God tells him to leave the ark with his family and the animals. Noah builds an altar and offers sacrifices. God makes a covenant with Noah and with all creation. Never again will he destroy all life with a flood. He sets the rainbow in the sky as a sign of this promise. God blesses Noah and his sons. Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, echoing the blessing once given to Adam and Eve. It sounds like a new beginning, a second chance. But even after the flood, the human heart is still the same. Noah plants a vineyard, gets drunk, and a shameful scene happens in his tent. Blessings and curses are spoken over his sons and their descendants. The flood changed the world, but it did not remove sin from the human heart. And so, as Noah's family grows into nations, the story moves from one family on a boat to many peoples building something together, a city, and a tower that will reveal a new face of the same old problem. Part 5. The City of Pride, Genesis 11. In the previous part, God brought judgment on a violent world and rescued Noah through the flood. But the story made it clear: water can wash the earth, but it cannot wash sin out of the human heart. Now the camera moves from one family on a boat to many nations on a plane, building a city and a tower to make a name for themselves. Humanity grows again. New nations appear. People learn to make strong bricks and large buildings. They settle in a plain in the land of Shinar and begin a project. Come, they say, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, so we will not be scattered over the face of the earth. They are united, but their unity is built on pride and fear. They do not want God's name to be honored. They want their own name to be great. God comes down to see the city and the tower. He knows that when human pride is united and left unchecked, there is no limit to the harm it can do. So God confuses their language. Suddenly they cannot understand one another. Work stops. The project fails. The people scatter across the earth, the very thing they were trying to avoid. The city is called Babel, which sounds like confusion. From Eden to Babel, we have seen the same pattern. God gives humans honor and a calling. Humans choose to define good and evil on their own terms. Relationships with God, with each other, and with creation are broken. Violence and pride grow. God responds with justice and mercy, again and again. Genesis 1-11 ends not in a perfect world, but in a confused, scattered city. It leaves us asking, has God given up on humanity? The answer is no. In the very next chapter, God will speak to a man named Abram and begin a new plan to bless all the families of the earth. Reflection: what Genesis 1-11 shows us. Genesis 1-11 is not just an old story, it is a mirror. We see a good world, and we feel that goodness in our own lives: beauty, friendship, creativity, our longing for meaning. We see humans rejecting God's wisdom and choosing their own way, and we recognize the same attitude today: my way, my truth, my name, my success. We see jealousy in families, violence in societies, pride in cities and nations, and we recognize our news and our history. But we also see a God who grieves over evil, who judges what is wrong, and yet keeps giving mercy and new chances. He warns Cain. He protects him. He saves Noah. He promises never again to flood the earth. He stops Babel before it grows worse. Behind every failure, God is quietly preparing a way to bring healing and blessing. Simple prayer closing. If you would like, you can join me in a simple prayer. God, thank you for creating a good and beautiful world. Thank you for giving humans the honor of being made in your image. I see in these stories the same pride and selfishness that can live in my heart. Please forgive me for choosing my own way instead of yours. Thank you that you have not given up on your world. Teach me to trust your wisdom about what is good and what is evil, and help me to live as your image bearer where I am today. Amen. Outro teaser for next episode. Genesis 1-11 begins with a garden and ends with a tower. It shows how a good world became broken and confused, and how God stayed involved every step of the way. In the next episode, we will step into Genesis 12 and meet Abram, the man God calls to begin a new story of blessing for all the scattered nations of the earth.